Welcome to The Verdict. We are discussing another interesting topic today, that is labor matters. Today's episode is under the UPND Alliance, who are the sponsors of this episode of the program. Today on the program, I'm joined by a seasoned trade union leader, and that's is also the vice president for the Movement for Democratic Change, MDC, and he is Mr. LEONARD HIKAUMBA. Welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you very much. Good evening, viewers.
For those who are watching the program for the first time, I'm Patrick Soko, and we'll be discussing pertinent issues surrounding the labor movement and a number of issues in the political system. As you already know, Zambia is in the political mood as we go to elect leaders at various levels of government, be it at a councillor level, that's a local government, as well as parliamentary, as well as presidential levels. Well, now to get started with our topic of discussion, Mr. HIKAUMBA, I want to first of all appreciate or understand the common grounds of the UPND Alliance. What prompted the Movement for Democratic Change to be part of the UPND Alliance?
Well, I think we have so many common grounds. I think there's so much that we share in common. I think the paramount common ground is the fact that we would like to change Zambia to the country that we want. You know, there are so many things that have gone wrong, and we think that we need to change Zambia so that it can be a country where the citizens can live in dignity. You know, starting from the issues of the economy, all of us have seen how the economy has gone down. We have seen the freedoms that have slipped through our fingers. People are no longer free. We have seen joblessness among the youth. We have seen quite a lot that is going in the wrong direction. Corruption, talk about it. People have been found wanting, but they've gone scot-free. And as a result, the country has lost a lot. The Zambians have lost. So when you look at even the manner in which our current government is spending, it's such that it doesn't inspire people. You know, there is reckless expenditure. So all these are common grounds. Would like, first and foremost, to bring economic liberation to the Zambian people. The people should be able to meet the basic requirements of food, shelter, clothing, health, education. So these are the things that we think people should access without having to stress so much like it is now.
Now, I want to take you to the topic of discussion that is dear to you, being in the labor movement for a long time. I want to ask you to assess how has been the operations of the labor movement of late, based on your assessment and what you think is the best way to manage the labor movement.
Well, I really sympathize with my colleagues in the labor movement. Sympathy because they cannot operate freely. When we were in the labor movement, we had the liberty to stand up and criticize government where they did not do right. And we could also praise government where they did well. But at the moment, the current government is so opposed to being criticized. Any union that criticizes government is an enemy. Any union leader who criticizes government is an enemy. And we have seen how labor leaders have suffered intimidation, how some have even been retired prematurely just for voicing out Because of what essence is a union if they cannot stand up to talk on behalf of their members? Of what use is a union if it cannot stand up to criticize government? So the government want to render the unions, as mere organizations they would like to receive praises from. Our colleagues are working under extremely difficult conditions. And okay, the other problem that they are going through now is we've seen so many unions in the public sector now, especially, and even in the private sector you find that there is multiplicity of unions. This is a problem that we had tried to address, but these are internal dynamics among the workers. It is our belief and expectation that in the near future the workers on their own will be able to see how they can unify themselves. There were efforts not so long ago where FFTUZ and ZCTU were trying to merge upon the realization that they needed a unified voice. So they tried to come together, but midway, certain things were a bit difficult to deal with, and I would like to urge them still that they should pick it up from where they ended, and so that they can have a unified voice for the workers. But otherwise, what we are saying ourselves is that when we come into office, the workers will be at liberty to organize themselves freely without government interference. The unions will be able to operate without fearing that they will be victimized. And to that end, we are saying, you see, not only trade union leaders, there have been several cases that we have received where upon suspicion that someone is inclined to the opposition or is sympathetic to the opposition, such people will either be transferred, if they are in government, they will be transferred to very distant and remote places. Either they will be retired in national interest, and sometimes, they are just victimized to the extent that they get frustrated. Now, for all the workers who have been victimized, especially those who have been retired prematurely in national interest, as UPND Alliance, we are saying these workers should give us their details, because they would like to reinstate them in their positions, because they were just victims. And there have been assertions that when the UPND Alliance comes into office, they will reduce the workforce. To the contrary, what we want is to increase the numbers of those who are in employment. It's not our agenda to reduce employment. Our agenda is to increase employment opportunities. Those are the things that we stand for. So, for those workers out there who have been victimized, please don't hesitate. Come to us. We shall look into your issues. Because what country is it where, trade unions that have worked so much, even to liberate the country, can be subdued and subjected to this kind of victimization? It's not fair. And my colleagues, I do talk to them. They even to talk to me sometimes, they find it difficult, because now I'm in the opposition. The colleagues I was always chatting with, colleagues I was working with, now I become distant just because I've got into politics and I'm in the opposition. If they see my phone call, at times they will just clear it. If I meet them, They have to look around. Is there anyone who is seeing us? Now, what kind of life is that? They should be free. They should be free to interact. That is the freedom that we would like to bring about.
So is it safe to say the labor movement has been weakened under the current administration?
Well, it has been, I would like to say they've been really pushed to the corner by those in office. How do you look at a situation where the president does not find time to have regular meetings with the national center? How is the president going to know what the workers want? How are they going to buy into the agenda of government if they cannot meet with the principal officer of the country? And that's why things have not been going right. The trade unions can advise the president how best certain issues can be handled, but to distance them, then it means you are digging your own grave. The other presidents, the late President Mwanawasa, may his soul rest in peace, he had put a regular timetable where on a quarterly basis he would meet the national center. Even if there were no problems to deal with, because he believed that if there were no problems to sort out, but there were ideas which could be discussed for the betterment of the workers, for the betterment of the country. And as an alliance, we think that we should give this sort of consideration and respect to the workers, to the trade unions, so that we can hear from them how they think, labor matters should be managed in the country. The highest office must know. Because if the highest office doesn't understand certain good intended suggestions from the trade unions will not be accepted, they will not go through. And that's where the problem lies.
And that brings me to another question, which is what is the Alliance agenda in terms of employment creation in the country?
Employment creation means that it can only be achieved if you put a menu that will grow the economy. So our approach is that there should be constructive and serious, liaison among the actors in the economy. That is, the private sector operators, government itself, and the workers' organizations. They need to come together and come up with strategies of how employment can be created. But we already have an idea that for us to create employment, we need to stimulate economic activity. There must be economic growth that can support employment creation. At the moment, if the economy is growing at less than 3%, less than 4%, what job opportunities do you expect? Of course, like now, people can start giving an excuse that because of COVID, business has gone down. Yes, it's true. Business has gone down. But we saw the downward trend long before COVID came in. So COVID found us already on our way down. And to solely blame COVID for the downward trend is not being truthful. So for us, we think that economic activity must be boosted, and this is in liaison with those who are involved in different sectors of the economy. They should tell us what is it that they want. Secondly, when we talk about employment creation, we also think that through that kind of interaction, the actors in the economy should tell us what skills do they want? And when they tell us the skills that they want, then we bring on board the training institutions. We tell them the private sector actors or the actors in the economy, this is what they want. These are the skills they want. Are you able to train people in order to have these skills? This is what we call demand-driven training, where you are focused. You know that what our target is to have this cadre of people, this kind of professions, so that when people are through with their training, then they won't be roaming the streets. We have a problem now because there is no career guidance. Some professions are saturated, but there is no one to advise our young men and women that the fields where they want to train, there are no job opportunities. So there's a very big gap. There are times when people have to come from outside the country to come and do certain jobs which we consider as very simple jobs. But when we look at our workforce, we are lacking those skills. That's why some employers have to go and employ from outside. I want to bring that to a stop so that we embark on demand-driven type of training. Secondly, we want to embark seriously on training that will enable the graduates to be self-employed. Because when they are training, they should not just look to be employed. They can also be self-employed. All they need is appropriate skills, and of course at the end of it all, there should be capital injection by government to assist these young people to get into business. So entrepreneurship skills should be taught in how and so that they know how they can get started with business and how they can employ themselves. And ultimately, these are the same ones who are going to be employers of others. So that way, we shall multiply employment opportunities. So these are the sort of approaches. Then there's also the aspect of, cost of training. Some young people are not privileged to have enough resources to go for training at their own cost. So the government bursary or the government loan system must be supported to ensure that there is adequate funding for it, to ensure that we have enough money for those who want to do courses which are required in industry and other economic sectors. So this is what we would like to do.
Interesting. Well, in case you are joining us or you are watching The Verdict, this edition is brought to you by the UPND Alliance, and my guest on the program today is the Movement for Democratic Change Vice President and also the former President for the Zambia Congress of Trade Unions, Mr. Leonard HIKAUMBA. We are discussing labor matters and issues surrounding the electoral process. Our dear viewers, you'll be able to also participate on the program later on by asking pertinent questions that you think our guest needs to respond to. Now, going on with our discussion, I want to find out, there's been the issue of COVID and slowdown in economic activities. And even if the alliance is to form the next government, for instance, if you are voted as an alliance, these challenges will persist for a while. The issue of the economy as well as the COVID-19. Now I want to find out how you have assessed the challenges that have come with the COVID-19, especially on workers, as well as the slowdown in economic activities, and how you would want to actually work towards addressing that issue.
Yeah, just like I told you in the first place, our approach is that we should work together. Working together is our priority number one.
Exactly.
So these challenges that we have, we would like to engage various sectors, because the way COVID is affecting, for instance, the tourism sector is different from the way COVID is affecting, for instance, the agriculture sector, different from the way it is affecting the mining sector. So we would like to engage the operators in various sectors. And our emphasis is that the workers themselves, through their organizations, should not be left behind. As we liaise, as we plan together what we ought to do, everyone should be involved. And in that way, we are going to come up with suggestions or strategies that will help uplift our economy whilst ensuring that we do not escalate this problem of COVID-19. So we shall be mindful that we would like to, as much as possible, reduce the effects of the pandemic, and at the same time we come up with strategies that will help in stimulating economic activity.
Interesting. Now, another issue that I want to find out, how would you rate the Patriotic Front administration in terms of addressing the plight of workers in the country?
Well, like I have said, I began by talking about the way they've treated, the trade unions, the way they've treated workers. It's been pathetic. Workers are not, are working in freedom. If government says, no, want to do this, there are some directors, I remember, when I meet them, they will say, but what can we do? Sometimes we are told to do this or that, and if what we are being told is not workable, the moment we tell our leaders that this is not workable in the manner you've proposed it, we can either do this or we should not do it. Especially if they say, no, this cannot be done, then they are immediately labeled as being anti-government. They are victimized. So for us, we would like professionalism to be promoted. Why is it that, why have we trained professionals if we can't listen to them? Why? And that's why even those who are in the diaspora, they're finding it difficult to return. That's why some people have left, because it's very difficult as a professional to do something that you know is professionally wrong. So it's either they just stand aloof, like what is happening in most cases, or they decide in frustration to go elsewhere. But for us, we are saying the professionals are the asset that we have. We need to listen to them. They need to advise us on what to do, because they have the knowledge in whatever professions that they are involved in. So that is what we would like to do, which is not happening now. Then there is the aspect of remuneration. The PF came on the platform of more money in your pockets, and I've been hearing some people bragging that the PF has done well in terms of enhancing workers' remuneration.
They are saying the civil servants are now able to buy vehicles, own houses, buy plots,
Yes.
so they have delivered on that, according to them.
You see, there are so many problems among the workers. That's why now they are even talking about debt swap. Why? It's because the remuneration is poor. The opportunities to do anything on their own from their pay is not there. So they have to go deep into debt. So why would people throw themselves into debt if things were okay? No. In 2013, I remember, the salary increment that was given was, it's what was called harmonization of salary scales, 2012, 2013. They found some people maybe with the same qualifications, others were getting more than others. Yeah, but this was more prevalent. The differences were clearly significant between the health workers and the rest of the civil servants. Now, this has a historical background. In 1995, government came up with the Central Board of Health, under which they wanted to transfer all the health workers from government to the Central Board of Health. And they said they wanted to do that in order to enhance the remuneration for the health workers. There was a problem at the time. So many health workers were leaving the country, going to go and work abroad. So to arrest that situation, they wanted to create the so-called Central Board of Health. But as a labor movement, looking at the structure and arrangement of the Central Board of Health, we said it was going to be a superstructure which was top-heavy, which was not going to respond to what they were actually saying. So we opposed the transfer of health workers. With time, we challenged government. We said, if you really want to improve conditions for the health workers, you give them those salary increments that you envisage if they were to go under Central Board of Health. They started, dilly-dallying. No, if we do that, other civil servants are also going to rise and say, you have given one sector, can you give to all of us? And we said, as labor leaders, we put ourselves on the chopping board. We want you to give these health workers the increments that you had planned to give them if they had gone to Central Board of Health. This is a proposal coming from us as a union. We shall tell our members that the reason this increment has been given is because of ABCD. And the government had no option but to give that increment to the health workers, which was higher than for everybody else. And from that time on, we saw a reduction in the number of health workers leaving the country, going to go and work outside. And that differential was maintained until the PF came into office. They didn't look at the genesis of that problem, and they said, well, it's an error that some workers should get more than others when they hold equivalent qualifications. So they started this harmonization, and the health workers became the benchmark. So whereas, yes, the harmonization brought those who were below, it brought them at par with those who were above. So it means those who were above, who were the benchmark, did not receive anything. So only those who were below were given this increment to equalize with their colleagues. And after that, we saw 2014, 2015, there was a wage freeze in 2014. No increment was given. 2015, there was no increment. 2016, there was a small increment that was given. Again, 2017, there was no increment. So, under PF, 3 wage freezes within that short space of time. If you look at the MMD from 1991 to 2011, when they left, there was the one real wage freeze, because the other one, we fought against it, and an increment was given. So during the whole duration, it was just one. But with PF, 3 wage freezes within this short space of time. And there was no, even when they gave the subsequent years salary increments, they were not in compensation of those years when they did not give salary increments. So this is why the workers are in the problems that they have now. Because the salary increments were not moving with the increase in prices of commodities, so they lagged behind. So to do whatever they wanted to do, they had to incur a lot of debt. Look at the teachers. There was a government decision that they should do away with the certificates for the teachers. And they wanted diplomas and degrees. Teachers were expecting that government was going to give them money to upgrade themselves to higher levels. But that did not happen, only for a few. So the majority started sponsoring themselves to do courses in order to conform to what government had said. Where were they getting their money? These are the problems which we are seeing now. The salary increments were not coming, but they had to incur costs to upgrade themselves to diploma and to degrees. So, what is happening now, especially this debt swap which we are talking about, it's like someone who has created a problem and now tries to, or let me say someone digs a ditch and then he comes to start covering the ditch, and then he wants to be praised for covering that ditch. The question is, in the first place, why did you dig that ditch? This is exactly what we are seeing at the moment. So the PF has not done anything significant for the workers. And more so because the economy has gone down. Look at the kwacha, where it is now, the exchange rate. What the workers were getting 10 years ago, in comparison with what we are getting now, in real terms, I'm sure they are below quarter of what they were getting 10 years ago when the PF came into office. So for me, I don't think that is an impressive, record. It's not at all.
But do you think the debt swap arrangement is a sustainable measure, especially for a government that has a domestic debt as well as external debt that is too high?
One thing I need to clarify, because some workers were getting excited about this debt swap, most were thinking that it's cancellation of the debt. Not at all. Workers should not think that their debts have been cancelled. No. And even this debt swap, it doesn't affect all the workers. It only affects those who borrowed from other institutions. Now, let me show you. It's a good measure in the short term, just for some, but in the long run, it's not. And it has left out those who did not have any debt at all. So what it is, if a worker is owed money by government, because these allowances like settling in allowance, leave travel benefits, subsistence allowances, which are not being paid, and the government has accumulated a debt against some workers. Now, these are the workers who have gone to borrow from financial institutions. So what the government is saying now, if you are owed money by government and then you went to borrow from this financial institution, then they will look at how much you are supposed to be paid, and this is what they will pay to the institution that you borrowed from. So that's a debt swap. So if what you borrowed is more than what the government owes you, it means the remainder of that debt, it will be transferred to the public service micro finance company, which would now be like you've borrowed from them and then you start paying back. That is one. Then two, there are some officers who are not owed any money by government. They have no outstanding claims, but they borrowed. So for those, they are calling it bailout, because it's not a debt swap. If the other one doesn't have a debt and you also do, it's only you who has a debt. So they would like take over that debt, pay, and then you now owe government instead of owing that finance company. The only thing is that according to what they've said, the interest rate will be lower. But now let's look at it from another angle. These issues, if you read through the agreement, it's discretionary, and the discretion is given by government, and secondly, it's dependent on availability of money. Now, what will prevent these people? Assuming in the unlikely circumstances that they came back into office, how would they sustain it? And it's only meant for those who have accumulated it up to this time. Now the question is, what is the benefit of Mr. Soko, who has not borrowed from a finance company, who is not owed money by government? What is the benefit in this arrangement? Completely nothing. Zero. And going forward, it's not like the new dates will be treated the same. No, it's just for the dates that are there at present. Going forward, there is no such arrangement as debt swap. You see? Yes. So, when you look at it again, when did this problem come? It has been there. In 2016, the problem was there. 2017, the problem of being highly indebted was there, all the way, but only to be given consideration now, and only a few weeks before elections. Now, what are you going to conclude? And they are saying there will be 3 months period in which they are going to start effecting those debt swaps. For the time being, they want to work on the nitty-gritties. What does that tell us? It means it is not a program that was conceived a long time ago. No, it's a new conception which had to be hurried because the elections are near. Let us find a way of motivating those workers, because workers have been complaining and they've been saying, we want to vote these people out. So that was just one way of trying to motivate workers and say, okay, there will be this. Now, to our colleagues, we are saying, government has shown its failure. Because why have workers gone to borrow? One, it's because the remuneration is poor. That's why they've borrowed heavily. If they were well paid, they would not go and borrow where the interest rates are high. Secondly, government can provide loans at low rates to the workers. Why haven't workers gone to borrow from government where the rates of interest are low? Because government has not provided. So, who has failed? It's government failure. If government had provided enough money where workers working in government can borrow, they would not have gone to borrow from these companies whose interest rates are high. So for us, we are saying workers need to be motivated. You need to have a revolving fund where workers can borrow, and if any interest has to be charged, that should be very minimal, and there must be money all the time, so that workers are not forced to go and borrow from the Shylocks where they have to pay a lot. And if someone has been owed money for a long time, like maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 years, they have not been paid their allowances. Now, because the elections are near, you want to now consider and say, okay, there are those allowances we didn't pay you, so let's do a debt swap. Why haven't you paid them all this time? So it's government failure. Money would have been provided to just pay those workers off. Now they've gone to borrow because government, who owes them money, has not paid them. So who has created the problem? It's government. You see? So they want to be praised for the problem they created, not paying, and then they want to do a debt swap. Now, here is the situation. They've not said anything about those workers who are owed money in form of allowances, various types of allowances, who have not borrowed. When is their money going to be paid? Because they are not involved in this debt problem. Nothing has been said about them. So that money will remain pending, because they cannot go and say, which debt are you going to talk about? Because you have not borrowed. And those who have not borrowed from this side, from the financial institution, and are not owed money by government, then there is nothing for them. There is completely nothing. Now, this is where I was saying, we need something that is equitable and sustainable and beneficial, and which can be sustained for a long time. These are the things that we would like to bring about, so that workers can borrow as and when need arises, and then they borrow at interest rates that are affordable, not what is there. Because going forward, they are saying workers, they will ensure that before a worker borrows from a financial institution, there is need for approval from government. And they want to ensure that when you borrow, you should not exceed, you should not have below 60% of the basic pay when the loan is deducted. So meaning, going forward, people have to borrow less if they have to borrow from financial institutions. But that is just creating more problems for them. Now, the real thing is grow the economy to stimulate higher government revenues, then from that pay the workers well, then they will be satisfied. They will not have to borrow if their remuneration is high enough. Then the other thing is provide funding, a revolving fund where workers can borrow. Let them not go to these Shylocks who exploit them with high interest rates. So that's the way to solve this problem in the long run.
Well, others have also advanced a notion to say, when we talk about the issue of the purchasing power, others are suggesting that in Zambia, goods and services are cheaper compared to other countries in the region. Let's say South Africa, Zimbabwe. But I want to get your analysis of that notion which has been advanced by your critics.
I don't know what they mean by things being cheaper, but what we should look at, what is your purchasing power? You know, that is income versus your budget of basic requirements. does your income enable you to get all the basic requirements now in Zambia for most of the workers? The answer is no. But to go to these neighboring countries, the cost on a one-to-one, you may say, okay, this is cheaper than this. For instance, if you take the cost of fuel, okay, it's a cosmetic price. That's what I would say. Or else I would say before the kwacha devalued to the current rate, why were we paying so much? Why? Because if that was the true value of the fuel, with a reduction in the power of the kwacha, the fuel price would have gone up. Mm-hmm. But the price has remained static. So what explanation is that? So what we are saying is that, yes, you can look at the...
In other words, you're also suggesting that this is a cosmetic price which will increase after the elections.
Well, if our colleagues were to remain under very unlikely circumstances, of course, yes, would see such a situation. Because unless they are telling us that they were exploiting the Zambians before the kwacha reached the level where it is now. Because when these current prices have been there for the past, I think, 2-3 years. And look at the value of the kwacha, even just 2 years ago, or even just 1 year ago. Now, what explanation, what economic mathematics can you put to it? It doesn't add up. You see? Unless they're saying now they are subsidizing, which I think is, it's just a way of trying to show people that, the prices can be held constant for some time. But otherwise, our colleagues in other countries, they earn quite a lot, such that from their earnings, they are able to get the basic requirements. They don't go and borrow heavily the way our workers are borrowing now. So that shows you that the Zambian worker is exploited. They are not getting the true value of their labor. That is what is happening now. Because most people can't afford the basic requirements. You see? Just look at how much you were able to buy from, say, 5,000 kwacha about 5-6 months ago. If you went with your 5,000 kwacha now in the shops, are you going to come back with the same quantity of items? The answer is no. So, the Zambian workers are really deep into problems, deep in trouble. And that's why we are saying, dear brothers and sisters, an opportunity has come. An opportunity has presented itself this year on 12th August. Can we make some amendments? Can we make some changes so that we usher into office people who are serious with the welfare of the people, so that we can have a Zambia that we want, where workers should not be counted among the poor. What inspiration do you give to someone who is at school if you cannot manage to buy the basic requirements? How are you going to convince a boy and a girl that it's important to go to school? How are you going to inspire the young ones that it's important to go to school when they see several of their elder brothers and sisters?
Yes, we take that call, Mr. HIKAUMBA. You can Hello, you are through to Kamni TV.
Good evening, thanks. How are you? Yes.
Yes, we are asking for your names and where you are calling us from. Ndola, Mr. Okay, you can go ahead with your contribution, sir.
No, I just want to ask you to about what you said. The minimum rate is 1,600 rate. Now, we found out that the minimum rate is 12,600. You know, seeing the difference. That is the minimum rate. The rate is supposed to be different. Now, you got to 1,600. So, I agree with you about what you say. The money that we are going to Canada is nothing compared to the economy which we have working the money.
Okay, thank you for your contribution, sir.
Maybe additionally, you know, we are all under the effect of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Exactly.
Now, if you look at the rate of the Zambian kwacha to the South African rand over the past 2 years, when we've had COVID-19, Zambia has lost more
compared to the rand.
Compared to the rand. Compare with the pula. The kwacha has lost more against the pula. Now, are we the ones with a more devastating COVID-19 pandemic than these other countries in the region? The answer is no.
Exactly.
Yeah. So the only explanation we can give is mismanagement. Our colleagues out there have tried the best that they can. Even under the COVID pandemic situation, their currencies are performing better than our economy. You see, when we were advising them that, look, it's not good to overborrow, they said they were in a hurry to develop the country. But where has it taken us? We even failed to pay interest on the Eurobonds. And those debts are growing. And the sure thing is that if, again, under very unlikely circumstances, PF was to bounce back, those we owe money, they will have no kind words or consideration for the PF in office. Yeah, because you borrow, but the way you spend, it's like you are not owing anything.
You are through to Camry TV.
Yes, please.
May we have your name and where you are calling us from?
Okay. I'm Rexina.
Lexina.
Rexina Piri.
Lexina Piri.
Yes.
Thank you for being the first female caller on our program.
Hello?
We thank you for being the first female caller on our program.
You got to get my first name.
You can go ahead with your contribution. We've gotten your names.
Okay.
Yes.
Let me go ahead.
Yes.
Thank you for this program. What I can say is this. We are retirees in Kapiwe. And the new cabinet you have covered us one other time. We have been fighting for our repatriation, benefit, this day, and then this other claim that is from 2005 up to now, nothing is happening. We are not hearing anything, but money is being given to the street vendors, to the marketeers, to the traders. We see that money. And the money also is being given now to the civil servants who got loans. Meanwhile, as retirees have not been cleared. Now, with that being fair to the government, this government has been so cruel to the people, especially with the retirees. In fact, others are widows. They lost their husbands, their children have stopped to school, and they are not being attended to. But we have seen even how the leaders themselves are getting fatter and fatter. We can see that they have a lot of money, but they don't care about we common people. To tell you the truth, we need to be rescued. Otherwise, we are in total trouble. We are the same Zambians. And for them, it's because of the teacher. Even the president is there because of the teacher. Yes, without a teacher, even the journalists wouldn't have been there. But we have been forgotten completely. They don't even care about us. What kind of a government is this? We are tired. We are tired. Can you help us help this issue?
Thank you, Mrs. Piri. We've gotten your point, and I think she's advancing the plight of retirees.
Yeah, sure.
And this is, they are saying they have been neglected. And I want to find out your perspective as the alliance, and how we would want to better address issues which Rexina Piri has advanced there.
Indeed, the problem of retirees is a real one, and I'm sure she's talking about having retired, some people having retired as far back as 2005. Mm-hmm. And I think these are the same people, when they were not paid, who voted for PF in 2011, because PF was promising them that they were going to be paid. But it's a disappointment that even when PF came in, up to now, they've not been paid. You know what it implies? If you were retired in 2005, you are paid on the basis of what you were being paid at the time of retirement. So I really feel pity for people who retired that long time ago. Because when they go and ask for their, if at all they are going to be paid, they will get very little, which is quite insignificant. It's very sad. So we think that the retirees should be paid within the shortest possible time. Maybe upon retirement, someone should be paid. That's the ideal situation. I can tell you that from about 2010 or before that, efforts had been made and a strategy had been put in place to reduce the waiting period. It kept reducing even into the PF, but things turned around somewhere around 2016, 2017. Retirees who were waiting for a shorter period of time, like maybe 2 years, they started now waiting for longer periods. And this money is paid at nominal value. That is, if today, or if in 2015 I was supposed to be paid 5,000 kwacha, and if I'm to be paid today, they will pay me the 5,000 kwacha. But what has happened to that 5,000 kwacha from 2015 to date? It means it has lost value.
It's value, yes.
That time, it could enable me to get more in terms of value of items, but now I get less. The ideal situation, if there is, that's why, you see, there was a fight, and I commend unions for having fought hard to ensure that whoever is retired should not be removed from the payroll. And we saw how under Bill 10, this provision was under attack. So we pay tribute to the gallant men and women who fought hard against Bill 10. Because now a person can retire but will remain on the payroll. The idea is to force the employer to pay promptly. Because the more you delay, the more you pay this person who is not working, who is retired. That was the whole idea. So if you want to avoid paying a retired person, pay them promptly. Now, the problem is for those who retired before that measure came in, because I really feel pity on them. Just as she has pointed out, a lot is being given. You know, we've seen marketeers, you know, they've been given bells of Salaula. We're seeing these things. Money was being distributed, but what is happening? Why have you forgotten the retirees? Someone was telling me, you see, we retirees are treated like a bulldozer. You are used to make the road. Once the road has been made, then they will say, no, this bulldozer, it should not move on this road, it will damage the road. That is how a retiree, unfortunately, is being treated. We want to reverse this trend. When we talk about poverty reduction, we are looking at paying retirees promptly. They should get their money promptly when it still has the value. Now if you pay someone 2 or 3 years later, you are not being fair, especially if you have not paid that money with the interest.
Interesting.
And that's why some people...
Okay, we take that call, Mr. HIKAUMBA. Hello, you are through to Camden TV.
Okay.
Yes, may we have your name and where you are calling us from? Hello, can you get us?
Yes,
that line was bad. I interrupted you before.
So that's why you see, it is very, very heartbreaking when you hear of a retiree dying before they receive their money. What you sweated for, you cannot enjoy. That's very sad. You know, everyone would want to find pleasure in what they've worked for. They would like to find pleasure in what they've sweated for. And that is why they need to be paid promptly. If they've got plans, they can only have those plans implemented if they are paid promptly. Now, like we are saying, someone had the plan maybe to build a house or to do whatever business some 4 or 5 years ago when they were retiring. Now things have changed. The money required to maybe build or do that business is far much more than what they could have spent had they started their business 3, 4, 5 years ago when they retired. So these are the problems. So for us, we are saying, because our policy is to change the country to the Zambia that we want, the retirees should be appreciated. Should be appreciated.
Okay. We lost that call. So, and that brings me to another interesting issue. Now that the previous caller is coming from Kafue, just recently we saw government injecting some money into nitrogen chemicals in Kafue, and with the view of actually reviving the economy there and creating employment for young people, according to the issues that have been advanced by the governing PF. I want to find out, what do you make of that? Does that hinder your chances of winning in Kafue?
Not at all. To the people we are saying, we've seen examples where things have not worked out. Go to Kawe. Is Mulungushi Textiles working? It's not. In 2019, the President, His Excellency, Mr. Edgar Lungu, he issued a statement that the government had instructed the IDC to revive the Mwinilunga pineapple plant, and that money had been found. It's on record. That was in 2019. And the statement was that by 2020, this plant, the rehabilitation will be completed. I think it should have been completed somewhere by April. Now, go to Mwinilunga today and buy me processed pineapples from that plant. Nothing. Where did that money go? The president made a pronouncement. It's on record. Go and buy me a chitenge material from Mulungushi Textiles. Are you going to find it? The answer is no. But we were told. So, and these were things which were, you know, they are good at making pronouncements just before the elections. Because all they want are votes from the people. Even that, I know, it's just a politicking, indicating that no, we are going to revive this. Why hasn't the revival been done all this long? The current regime has been there from 2015. What happened? Were they not seeing NCZ? And they've only seen it now. Didn't they know that NCZ needed to be given money from 2015? And they're only seeing it now, a few days before the elections. So who's going to believe? And if we say they are making those pronouncements because of the elections, are we not right? We are very correct. So, as much as we want to see NCZ operational, because you know, it doesn't make sense that we can make fertilizer in Zambia. It doesn't make sense that we are saying agriculture is the mainstay of our economy, then we are not producing the inputs that are required to revamp agriculture.
Your concluding remarks, Mr. HIKAUMBA.
My concluding remarks, I'm saying to the Zambian people, especially to my fellow workers, time has come. 12th August, we are ready. The workaholics are coming. They would like to help to redeem Zambia from economic stagnation. They want to redeem Zambia from poor governance. They want to redeem Zambia from many vices that are causing problems. We want to unify the country. We don't want a situation where you have to look at the name of someone. That's when you can give him an appointment. No, you are appointed as permanent secretary. No, you are appointed as this after looking at the name. Or because of the name, no, this one can't. Even when that person has qualifications. We want to look at meritocracy. People should be employed and given positions on the basis of qualifications and whatever is required for that particular job. These are the things we want to see. And we want to make sure that we work together. The government must be accountable to the people, not vice versa. We don't want to start, you know, how many times have I even mentioned the name of our presidential candidate? I haven't. But we don't want a situation where you only feel that you've made a statement when you've mentioned the name of the president. Every other sentence, you have to mention the name of the president. No. That is the political patronage. Us, we don't believe in that. We believe that we are a team and we should work as a team. And that is what will make us succeed. And we want to make sure that Zambia is unified. We should live in unity under the motto of one Zambia, one nation. So those are the things that we value most. So 12th August, we are saying, give the UPND Alliance the vote, and you will have liberated yourself economically, politically, and in many other areas.
Mr. HIKAUMBA, I would like to thank you for finding time to be part of the program.
Thank you very much.
Well, our dear viewers, we have come to the end of the program. We are glad that you could find time to watch and follow the program. Those of you who called in on the program, would like to thank you and make sure that you also join another edition of the verdict tomorrow. Remember, ours is an objective platform to ask the most important questions so that you, our dear viewers, can make the verdict. This has been Patrick Soko. Until next time, stay tuned to Kamne TV.